Hey everyone, welcome to the next edition of Exam Security Summit. Today we are going to talk about how we protect exam credibility in the era of agentic AI. I'm going to lead today's session with a keynote on the integrity gap, where we discuss how exam risk is actually breaking down in today's day and age. That's going to be followed by a very exciting panel discussion by leading assessment practitioners, where they're going to discuss agentic AI and orchestrated cheating, how the next threat wave is evolving. The second panel discussion is going to be headed by some of the leading experts in the exam body and certification space. They're going to discuss how they are fighting back and what's actually working and probably what's also not working. And lastly, we are going to have a panel discussion with leading identity and proctoring experts, where they're going to discuss why the most dangerous cheating hides between lines. So, very excited about what we have in store for you today. Hopefully, we can leave all of you with a lot of value today and also some interesting insights. So, with that, I'm jumping into my keynote, the integrity gap. High stake exams rarely fail because of a single tool. They fail in the seams between different tools. So most of us today think about exam security or proctoring or integrity in terms of what's happening within the exam. And then we use kind of a mishmash of tools ahead of the exam, after the exam to cover some of the gaps. But these siloed tools, these independent tools really lead to a lot of issues. And today we are going to look at three specific problem statements. The first one is the data overload. So today what happens is everybody is using some form of AI in their proctoring, but these AI tools combined with a lot of different sources or signals which you're tracking from your primary camera, your secondary camera, your screen feed, the audio stream, often leads to a lot of signals, and it becomes really difficult for us to separate noise from threat. And that has become one of the most common challenges I discuss with customers in the last few months. So proctors are really drowning in alerts with false positives, eroding the trust. And in all of this, real fraud is able to hide behind the noise. The second issue, which is largely unaddressed today, is the fact that there is no pre or post session intelligence. Some of you are doing identity verification ahead of the exam. Some of you have some ways of tracking leak of exam questions, some risk reports, which you're probably getting from vendors who are probably not your proctoring vendors. But this can't really flag non-bad bad actors before they sit down, or can't connect patterns across exams or candidates or cohorts. So that has been a big challenge for especially the large exam bodies we have been in discussions in the recent past. Lastly, and I think the most important aspect is, in spite of this entire spend in proctoring, the entire spend in exam management is geared towards protecting the credibility of your exam. Most organizations do not have a unified risk management protocol. There is no dashboard, there is no control panel where you can, as a program owner, manage compliance, manage risk for your exams. Most of the decisions which are taken based on anecdotal data, or with uh, more industry best practices in mind. And today we are going to talk about a new approach. We call it AIOP, Assessment Intelligence Operations Platform, one of the latest launches from Talview. And with that, how we are trying to also address all of these issues. But before we jump into the solution, let's also take a look at what are some of the costs associated with these gaps in the system today. So this recent reports say that almost 60 to 80% of candidates are having sessions where there are false positives, which requires human review. So the fact that everything is getting flat, there is no higher intelligence which is being used to process exam proctoring, leads to significant cost overruns because of additional reviews. Typically, because of how disparate systems are being used and risk exists in silos or risk detection exists in silos, almost 4 to 24 hours of latency exists between an incident happening and an actual defensible decision being taken, because you need to pull together a lot of different data points before you can make decision. And the blended cost of an investigation every time an incident happens is somewhere between 80 to $200. And that compounds significantly when you're talking about exams or credentialing at scale. And almost as important, if not more, is the fact that 1 in 7 candidates report feeling unfairly surveilled or accused because of all these issues. The fact that you don't have an end-to-end threat intelligence often leads to a kind of experience which is not what any of us would want our candidates to live with. And that's the challenge which we are trying to solve with an approach which we call end-to-end risk management. So the way we are envisioning this, there are 4 components to end-to-end risk management. The first is the before aspect, which is about risk prediction. How do you protect your exams from threat actors even before they sit down for exams? How do you identify repeat offenders? How do you identify if there are candidates from high risk cohorts taking up your exams? And then how do you verify the identity of every individual which is appearing in your exams? So that's the first pillar or the first component. The second is, which all of you are very familiar with, which is how do you secure exams during the exam? And here the focus really is on how do you reduce the signal, the noise, and improve the signal to noise ratio, which is happening within the session security paradigm. So how do we do multi-model signal capture? How do we manage incidents instead of events and use real-time inference and scoring for this? And how do we also use predictive messaging to really bring down the amount of cheating which is happening in exams rather than just focus on detecting? And the third component is what happens after the exam, really the post-exam intelligence, where how we use patterns and cohorts across sessions and cohorts to look for useful information which can help you manage your exam risk. So that involves everything from collusion ring detection, content exposure tracking, cross-session fraud mapping. So things which some of you I know are doing in bits and pieces, but not in a manner which is helping you to manage risk end to end. And all these 4 components are then layered into all these 3 components are then layered into the fourth component, which is a unified risk control panel or an end-to-end risk management dashboard, which really allows you to make decisions which are approvable, and you have complete audit trail for your exam. So this is the architecture of AIOP, the Assessment Intelligence Operations Platform. It has 3 kind of blocks within it. The first block, which all of you are probably already familiar with, Talview's patented 7-layer security framework. So there are 7 signal sources which we tap into to ensure that have a comprehensive security approach for your exams. This is everything from the identity verification of the candidate, the behavior analysis through the primary camera, the environment analysis through the second camera, the device security with a combination of lockdown browsers and screen mapping, the content feed analysis, the audio analysis, and the digital footprint analysis. So all of this are the 7 signal sources which we tap into to build AIOP. On top of it sits Talview's proprietary living ontology, which powers Alvi, our agentic AI for proctoring. So here, what we essentially is doing is, rather than looking at very specific events like a candidate looking away or somebody picking up the phone, which all could be false positives because a probably candidate is looking away as a part of their natural body language, or they picked up the phone to put it on silent. But an actual incident is if the candidate is consistently looking at in a particular direction, which indicates that they probably have some source of information there, which is helping them to cheat, or the fact that the candidate typed in an answer immediately after looking at the phone, which probably indicates that they had used the phone to find an answer. So using combination of events to effectively predict an incident rather than looking at independent events and then creating the noise which we spoke about is really a core part of the living ontology. And this is built based on millions of sessions which Talview has conducted, where we understand the combination of which events, patterns, or correlation between which events can be used to make meaningful prediction of an incident rather than independent events. And then use all of this before the exam, during the exam, and after the exam to do the pre-exam risk prediction, which we spoke about, the incident management, and the collusion detection or the post-exam intelligence. So that's really the first pillar of AIOP. The second pillar, and which I believe is something the we as a proctoring industry has really underserved the industry on, is the risk control panel. So the risk control panel really is a risk management dashboard, which give you a full view of what's the risk you are exposed to across your exam. So you might have different exams, you might have different cohorts of candidates, you might have different geographies. So the risk control panel gives you a view of what's your risk score in a particular program or in a particular exam or in a particular risk cohort, which is based on all the signals which you're collecting. So who is attacking our exams from the cheating as a service provider group? Which exam is having a lot of candidates using impersonation because you're probably not doing an identity verification today? Where which particular exam is where your content is being leaked in a variety of social forums and dark web on a continuous basis. So based on all of these factors, what we are able to do is assign an integrity score or a risk score for each of your exams, and also show you aspects like what's the dominant threat which you're facing for that particular exam, and what kind of recommendations can we give you to actually address those specific threats. So this allows you to make interventions which are very data driven rather than uh, just in adding more layers of security without probably really understanding whether that you are effectively addressing the real threat which your exam is facing. It doesn't stop with that. You can now drill down within an exam to see how what's your threat exposure across different cohorts, maybe based on geography, maybe based on other user characteristics, which really also allows you to make interventions which are more surgical. So for example, if your exam is having a high risk score, let's say in a particular geography, and where probably the compliance needs are more liberal compared to, let's say, another region where there are more strict compliance regulations. So your actual need is to use a second camera in the first region. In the second region, you might not even be able to use a second camera, even if you want to. But then now you have data which allows you to make those surgical interventions, so you're protecting the integrity and the credibility of your exams. And in a similar fashion, what the risk control panel also allows you to do is to measure the impact of interventions which you're making. You added a second camera. Did it actually make an impact with the risk score of your exam, or did it only add more friction to the candidate experience? You made specific changes to your content. Did it actually help you with reducing the leak of your content or improving the integrity of your exams? Or again, that was probably not an investment which has really given you fruit. So that's the kind of intelligence which the risk control panel is going to surface to you at your end. And when we look at the industry, we are still really at the detect stage with many of us, but the industry is continuously thriving to move towards prediction. So we already spoke about how do we predict risk score for candidates even before they sit down with the exam. But the way we are envisioning is we shouldn't stop here. So today we are focused on prediction, but we want to move beyond that and move beyond that very fast, because at the end of the day, what we want to do is prevent cheating. And one of the best ways to do that at a um, on the ground level is by predictive interventions, where we have found that many candidates, especially in low to medium stake exams, but even in some high stake exams, especially in a remote environment, sometimes what leads to cheating is the lack of awareness on the rules, lack of awareness of what checks and balances are in place. So what we are really envisioning, and which is a third pillar here, is that in the near future, we'll be able to actually prevent cheating through predictive intervention. So, uh, for example, by using caution messages or nudges in flight, or uh, using a combination of signals to discourage candidates actively from trying to take external help. So that's really the predictive angle here. So a typical workflow, which the way we are envisioning is AIOP is able to detect rising risk patterns. The candidate probably has some element of external assistance, which they have already thought about. But we would basically use a estimate of their trajectory, how they are progressing in the exam, and then surfaces cautionary predictive messages in the session, so that the candidate is also able to self-correct and not go down a path which is probably undesirable for him and for us. So, for example, a quick heads up message like, hey, we have noticed your attention shifting away from the screen. Please keep your screen on the exam window. This is a friendly reminder, not a flag. This probably is a good example of how we expect the predictive caution messages to work. So that was my keynote. The ask is to the industry, to everyone here, to all the stakeholders here, it really is to unify the risk surface and move from reacting to predicting today and soon to preventing. And we believe that Assessment Intelligence Operations Platform, or AIOP, gives you the brain which is required for doing that, and the risk control panel gives you the dial which really helps you to manage risk end to end, and the predictive caution messages gives you the lever. So that's really how we are envisioning the industry to evolve in the near future. And Talview is about to launch a beta of AIOP in the coming months, along with beta versions of the risk control panel and predictive caution messages. So we're going to partner with many of you who are already in attendance. You're probably already aware of some of these new launches from Talview, and we are going to co-create and partner with each and every one as possible to build the future for the industry. Thank you.